Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Happy late Turkey Day for those who are celebrating it here in the States, and happy incredibly belated Turkey Day for those who are in Canada or if abroad. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. I am your host, Dom of X, comicreleases.com, associate editor, and today, of course, I have one of my best buddies with me to talk about these three amazing DC Finest books, and a look ahead at the future, of course, is the Epic Marvel Podcast host, Mr. Kurtis Finley. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine today. It's no turkey in my weekend, that's for sure. It's just kind of an ordinary day today, but still good to be here, and I'm glad that we get to talk about some really great DC finest today.
I do too. I also want to apologize for all of the people who do watch me on Nearman Condition, as I am a month behind in doing my video overviews due to classes and other extra whatever you want to call it. I am currently I'm not gonna get a lot into it, but I'm currently sidelined with a toe injury. I am in a very suboptimal setup, as I was talking to Kurtis during the green room, but I'm still here. We're still here to talk about DC Finest, and I will get those videos at some point in the future. Hopefully, I can get those recorded later today if I'm not eating more food or not shopping, even if I am only on one leg, or tomorrow. So I will hopefully be able to get those videos out to you. But let's go ahead and say hello to our friends before we get in. If my thingamabob is working. See if I can't get the overlay set here. I forgot to change the link because of course I did. All right, there we go. Happy Finest Friday. I hope everyone is good. From Nicola, of course, one of our bigger fans. Let me see if I can. Gosh, dang it. My mouse is heading all over the place today. Partworks Comics Reader, good morning to you. Back to being behind on pickups. Just ordered the November Finest releases. T-Bubs was the focus of funds for November. Interesting stuff.
Okay, those are like little vinyl figures,
Yeah,
is that right?
I believe you are correct. So I understand the shifting of appropriated funds when all in. Karsten, hello all. Hello to you. And good morning from Jason Miller. 8168, good morning, Dom and Kurtis. My store sent
Morning.
out copies of Creepy Presents Alex Toth and DC Finest Superman the Invisible Luthor a week early, and I got them today. Just made a start on
Nice.
the Superman Golden Age stories. I'm partly jealous because I have a Barnes and Noble that's super close to me, and sometimes they will have books 1 week early. I've realized. One time I went in and it was like 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks before the DC Finest War anthology came out. I just wanted to see what they had new on the shelf. Sometimes, I go to the Barnes and Noble to study or chat, hang out with friends or whatever. And they had it. I was like, wow, I'm surprised. So very, very jealous jealous of you, Nicola. Good morning, Dom and Kurtis from Crazy Diamond J2112. And we also have a good morning from Sasmirth540. Hi, Dom Kurtis. Off today, so I finally get to catch one of these shows. Yeah, my family is off today, and I believe my mom and dad are right now shopping somewhere no one else can speak. So a lot of people I know in my life that are off today. But yes, check out all of the stuff that I do, or whatever you want to call it, on comicreleases.com, where we do have the longest and most up-to-date running list of all of the DC finest that have come out and to be released as well. And if you join our Patreon for $2, you can track those individually yourself and chat with us in the Discord. We also have Kurtis, who is back up to speed with the Epic Marvel Podcast over on his channel, along with the Epic folks over in the Facebook group, who are awesome at designing and tracking all of their stuff down. You know what? I'm just going to say it. I can't name the people off the top of my head, but whoever does the mock-up designs of the DC Finest and maps them, like
Yeah,
those people are
pretty
the
wild.
coolest. I
Yeah.
I commend them, man. I don't know how they do it. But yes, we do have three books to talk about on the docket. Again, the three books that I still have yet to record overviews of, but I hopefully will be able to get to all of those at some point this weekend. Just again, I'm off commission, but we do have our first book of these being the Super Friends DC Finest, which is indeed the was the first book that we had out this month. The Fury of the Super Foes is supposedly the first in a set of three as well, because this was a 47 issue series. This is going to collect Super Friends, or sorry, two, I should say. This is going to collect Super Friends issues 1 through 26, and also has additional material of limited collector's edition C41, C46, and Aqua Tears meet the Super Friends mini comic special, which I believe was not in the round of solicitations. We also got E. Nelson Bridwell on the main writing portion of the series as credited. We also have returning back to one of these DC Finest books, Ramona Fradden, who was on the Aquaman DC Finest and loved her stuff there. We also have the supplemental inks from Vince Coletta, the infamous Vince Coletta, along with Rick Estrada. Terry Austin on Aqua Tears, seeing John Burns inker pop up here as well was definitely interesting. And Alex Toth on the limited collector's edition as well. And as somebody who has never experienced these comics before, and I've only seen clips of Aquaman getting dunked on in the show, this was definitely an interesting ride, seeing Wendy and Marvin and Wonder Dog tear things up. What about you, Kurtis? What were your thoughts in reading through this series?
Well, first of all, I am very familiar with the show, especially the latest seasons, because that's kind of when I was a kid in the growing up through the late 80s and watching cartoons and such. They had some reruns and whatever, and then they released them all on DVD several years ago, and I bought those and watched them. And the show is by Hanna-Barbera, and it is not the greatest show. Hanna-Barbera is known for a very stylized look, and their animation is they take a lot of shortcuts. And when they were doing cartoons in the 50s, like Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound, Top Cat, and all that kind of stuff, through the 50s and the early 60s and such, their shows were great. They really came up with a good method to their animation and such. As they kept on going forward, and either their budgets were getting smaller, or they just were getting too many projects to handle at once, or whatever it is, the shows kind of got cheaper and cheaper as they went along. And so by the time we get to Super Friends through the 70s, it's like there is a lot to unpack here in terms of just like the quality of the animation and storytelling. It's very formulaic storytelling. A typical story is there's a villain, the alarm comes or whatever, and there's a villain to catch. And so it's like the Super Friends have to break off into little groups and each take on their own thing, and then they reveal the bad guy at the end or something like that. And Wendy or Marvin have their comedic moments, or the Wonder Twins have their transformation moments and such, and it gets very repetitive and such. And so I've never read really these comics. So going into the comics, I'm like, okay, this is a comic based off of the show that has a lot of issues and that kind of thing. Am I gonna like this? And I am pleasantly surprised that this was a great show, or a great comic. It's different than the cartoon. It treats the content, while it's still more superficial than the regular comics, it's way better and more in depth than the cartoon show. So this is definitely worth reading if you are a fan of Super Friends. Um, Yeah, what were your thoughts on the way these stories were presented, Dom?
I've never, like I said, I only had seen Aquaman being completely roasted, in the show for his useless abilities, and I still do feel like he gets a lot of that in said comic where I'm like, well, he's like, oh, like I need to use my telepathy, or or somebody's like, oh, you're the guy who talks to fish, like you can help us in this direct incident. What I love about the comic, at least specifically from this perspective, is getting to see the whole point of view through the lens of Marvin and Wendy, as opposed to somebody else who is a part of the Super Friends, because you get to follow along with these point of view characters that see like, oh, like I'm friends with Batman and Superman, they can do all these things. So you get to see them sort of not only find ways to solve whatever issues are at hand. Like even the first stories where we get the villains also having these sidekicks, if you may, where Poison Ivy has a younger version of herself, fighting train crime. Same with Penguin, but they also learn plenty as superheroes to fix the problem, even if their mentors or their friends aren't there. And we get to see plenty of that move on as the issues move out. And I never feel like there's an instance where I'm questioning myself and saying, oh, like, is this just going to be another one of those, like, hey, like, here are the funny guys that are portrayed on television. They're going to go fight the villains. There's always a different way that these guys solve their problems, and in that, like, I can really appreciate Bridwell and everybody else who's working on this book and finding ways to tell stories that aren't just the same repeat cut over and over and over again. I think it's also elevated too that Ramona Fradon has, like, the panels are very much like a 70s 80s shaped TV. They're not like the full on rectangles that you see in other comic books, but it does feel like you are watching a different version of the Super Friends show that you're watching on TV. Um, so
That's a fantastic point. I didn't put that together because I did notice that all of the corners are on the all of the panels are rounded, and I'm like, that's an interesting art choice. I'm wondering why they did that. But that saying that it's trying to mimic like an old TV, it's like, yeah,
it
yeah,
kind of does, yeah.
that's pretty good.
Sometimes you get the zoom over, you're like, oh wow, like that is really fascinating that Fradon was able to do that in every single one of these issues. So yeah, I thoroughly
Well,
enjoyed.
and the
Yeah,
people who takes over after Fradden, because he continues the same thing as well. Um, Kurt
Kurt
Schaeffenberger.
Schaeffenberger, yeah.
He does a lot of the last issues, the back half of this book, and he continues that trend.
Yeah, I agree. It's very pleasant. It's also it's enjoyable. It's not like I'm pulling my hair out when Aquaman pops up. I hate slamming down on Aquaman, but I do legitimately think the TV show and the renderation of Aquaman is like this guy who can talk to fish, and even in moments like that, like it's not as bad here as it is in the TV show. So I commend everybody here who worked on this book, including Alex Toth, who has his point and shine in the last limited edition collector spot, where we get to see some of his art too. We also had there was an Alex Toth deluxe edition that I believe was going to have some of this material as well, and before that book got canceled. Yeah, that being said, enjoy it too. I also really liked the way that they and in the back part of the book where they talked about how TV cartoons are done with storyboards, frames, pictures. They have all of these different pads and sheets where they keep track of where specifically to put on the TV show. Although from hearing what you said, Kurtis, it does seem like they did cut. It's funny because like with you telling us, hey, like they might have cut corners in one spot or another. You wonder how much of how much of that was actively portrayed and accurately portrayed in the back part of the book where they talk about, hey, like this is how the JLA work on TV. But yeah, I enjoyed the comic. Didn't expect to say that at all,
It's
but I enjoyed it.
It's worth noting that Alex Toth worked for Hanna-Barbera for a number of years and did all of the character designs for Super Friends. He worked on there a lot. And so if there's a book out there published by IDW and the Library of American Comics that called Genius Animated,
Hmm.
and it's all about Alex Toth's animation work. And there's so much great artwork in there. I should have brought it up here so I could show it off to everybody, but it's got a ton of Super Friends stuff in there. They reprinted a lot of his model sheets and storyboards and such to go along with the show. So it's a really good companion to this book if you want to see Alex Toth at work.
Okay.
Um, the other thing that I want to mention is that halfway through this book, some of the characters change. So, um, what are the kids' names? Wendy and Marvin and Wonder Dog are the kid sidekicks in the Hall of Justice. They are they're just kind of hanging around. They help solve the crimes and such. Marvin wants to be a superhero. They don't have any powers. They're just kids, and then and they are present in the first season of Super Friends, and then in the second season of Super Friends, they change the cast, and those kids go, and the Wonder Twins come in, and they stay around for the rest for quite a few seasons. And there's no reason explained in the show why they made a change. It was just a difference between the first season and the second season. And but in the comic here, they totally write that in. In fact, there are issues where Marvin and Wendy and the Wonder Twins are together, and there's like a changing of the guard or a passing of the torch in the comic. And I thought that was a really cool way to show the change in the characters because obviously this is a tie-in to the show, so they need to make it consistent with the show. But especially what's his name? Nelson Bridwell, whom I'm told is a very big stickler for continuity.
Hmm.
He wanted to make sure that that story was told. There's an actual reason why Wendy and Marvin were stepping out, and it's good. It's great. The other thing I want to note, or sorry, do you have any comments about that,
I
John,
do
before I go
because
on?
because m- I got introduced to Wendy and Marvin in the pages of Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run, where they joined the team at the latter end. I won't say why, but they do. So getting to see those two in this particular comic was just sort of a nice, like, hey, like they existed before you read Teen Titans, so that was nice. The other thing too
Yeah.
is I also want to mention that watching Teen Titans Go when I was a teenager, don't anybody asking, do not ask why, I just wanted my Teen Titans fix. They also had the Wonder Twins pop up from time to time in that show, and it was always like, okay, like, yeah, Wonder Twin powers activate when they do the hand thing.
Yeah.
You get to see them shapeshift or find out whatever it is they need to do. Um, so I just wanted to say, like, though the connections between my childhood and also reading this comic, seeing characters portrayed in completely different tones was definitely interesting to see. It was interesting to see Zan and Jaina join the team with their escapades. But continue on with
Yeah.
your point.
The other comment I wanted to make was that there were a lot of editorial boxes in this that pointed out to other things that were happening in DC continuity at the time. And very interesting to note because lots of times these tie-in comics are their own separate thing because they're following the continuity of the show or trying to maintain the changes that are prevalent in the show and so they disregard some of the things that are happening in comic continuity. But like I said before, I'm told that E. Nelson Bridwell is a very big fan and stickler of continuity, so he wanted to make sure that there were always references throughout these issues to things that were happening in the other comics at the time. And some of the stuff that he establishes in this book are things that go on to become an actual thing in the mainstream DC universe, like the Global Guardians. There's one, they don't call them the Global Guardians in this issue, but there's one comic where they have to team up with superheroes around the globe from various different countries. And so he's created a ton of new characters just for that one issue, and they actually get folded in to the mainstream DC universe as the Global Guardians.
So yeah, we have. I do find that interesting because I also had to look it up. Because in multiple issues, they mention like characters will mention something that is happening in the regular universe, even though this is part of the Super Friends universe. It'll be like, you have like Red Tornado who pops up on one of the issues, and I mean even like one of the footnotes, like you mentioned, like the editor note says like, oh, like this is gonna be if you're reading Justice League of America, this is what follows up with this specific part of your Red Tornado. You had in issue 17 when they fight the Time Trapper. You had references with Mon-El and his entire whole shtick with the Legion of Superheroes. Like that's all continuity heavy and mention, and is also an integral part of the issue because you're like, okay, like what if we didn't have a Superman? Well, all of these different things don't happen, and it's all in reference back to what's happening on the regular issues of your Action Comics, your Superboys, your Batmans, etc. And I think finding somebody who is just so I'm going to make this as continuity focused is such a cool thing, especially in the 70s. I think we look at guys like Al Ewing who's doing it for Marvel and Marvel now, or where we get to see somebody who is very I'm going to keep this long-winded line as accurate as possible. And I think it's even cooler as somebody in the 70s, even with all these different Earths that are popping up, somebody says, okay, like this is still all in canon, in respective with everything else that's going on. So I find that part about Bridwell really, really cool. Just to be like, yeah, we have continuity. Like we should use it.
Yeah, totally.
I also
So
yeah,
overall,
I agree.
I would say that this book is for people who like Silver Age comics, because there's a lot of Silver Age feel, even though this is 1976 to 1979. So it still feels very much like it's a book that where the stories are from the 60s and such. Um, if you want some more maturity in your comics, then this is probably not for you. However, if you are familiar with Super Friends, it's definitely better than the show, that's for sure. So take that as you will.
All right, so Kurtis gets his thumbs up. This gets a thumbs up from me too. I like the way that it melds continuity together. I do like Marvin and Wendy and the Wonder Twins and how they're portrayed too. So if you're a big fan of, if anybody out there has read, as I'm looking in the chat, Mark Russell's Wonder Twins of the Wonder Comics line that Brian Michael Bendis propped up back in the late 2010s, I would definitely recommend that for you. If you like that book, if you read Wonder Twins by Mark Russell, you will definitely like the Super Friends as well. And one other thing to note too, I looked this up because I asked somebody if they had the Crisis on Infinite Earths Absolute Edition. Somebody said that that Earth, or this specific Earth, even though all of these events are referencing Earth 1, it can't be on the same Earth, right? Because it's the Super Friends and not, the regular DC universe or whatever you would like to call it back then. So they were classified as Earth B, which is in the same spot as the Humor comics. So like Inferior, if you were reading Inferior 5, it apparently happens on the same Earth as that. So just another
We call
continuity.
it Earth HB. Earth
HB.
HB for Hanna-Barbera.
Hanna-Barbera. Well, there you go. So, yeah, just a quick note there, but yeah, let's go ahead and catch up with the rest of the chat. Sounds like Dom stepped on some Legos in the middle of the night. Man, you have no idea how painful the anesthetic was, James. That's all I will say. But yeah, I would have loved to step on Legos. I would have taken that over the pain I'm experiencing right now. Like, share, and subscribe, everybody. Yes, indeed. If you are brand new here, hit the subscribe button so you know when Kurtis and I are going live. A thought bottle from Partworks Comics reader as well. All
Oh,
things
so hold on a second. That comment is because that's what T-Bubs means. When he
T-Bubs.
was talking about T-Bubs, he's talking about Thought
Thaw
Bubble,
bubble.
which is a comic convention in the UK. And but I'm sure there are toys that are
There's
like
always
called
there, yeah.
T-Bubs or
That
something
that
like that,
counts,
right?
right?
It's like
Yeah.
that sounds so familiar to me. I'm not sure exactly where that comes from, but there you go.
T-Bubs. There you go. Health and school are more important. No, comics are more important, Karsten. Sometimes to the point where it's okay to skip out on getting Wendy's if you can get one more single issue at your comic book shop. Uh, Good DC finest this month and great looking stuff in the months to come. Thanks again for the well. Thank you for being here. You guys are what make this show possible. Um, there is a DC Finest Batman Blind Justice coming out on the 14th of July, and I also cannot wait for every single Batman DC Finest that they have done. I have thoroughly enjoyed with all of my bleeding hearts. And Not sponsored by any retailer, but IST does currently have all DC Finest for 45% off on Black Friday. So if you are looking for good
Whoa.
reads, yeah, that's got to be a it's got to be a good spot. I am jealous because I have not spent any Black Friday money yet, but I am currently looking into a book and also some stuff for my Switch too. But it's a we shall see at this point because I cannot get up from my chair. Fradden's art in Aquaman was fantastic, but this Super Froze was disappointing art. A lot of sparse backgrounds.
Yeah, and I think that's intentional because I think they're trying to mimic the show a lot, which also had sparse backgrounds. I think that there's that reason. They just kept it more simplistic to make it look a little bit more like an animated show. That's my guess, at least.
Yeah,
But you're right. She and also this is the she goes through an evolution in her style as well, and like this is actually pretty representative of where she heads through the 80s as her style progresses. It's different from when she was doing Aquaman, that's for sure.
oh, for absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
And and I think honestly, I would say that I like the artwork from Kurt Scheffenberger, whatever his name is. I can't remember. Let me just check. Kurt Schaffenberger. I think I like his art in the back half of the book actually more than Freyden's.
Fair to say. Let's see. We've also got the Super Friends book is a lot of fun. Don't feel that it is a book which rewards long sittings, but I read it at the same time I was reading Sandman Mystery Theater. Made for a nice contrast. Oh, that is a big
That's a
contrast.
contrast, all right.
It's like going from hey, like I'm reading Sin City, and then the next thing you know, oh, you're reading Super Sons or something like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
they're big. Come on, Curtis, you can't be that old. You'd have to be almost as old as me, and I'm beyond half a century.
I am 44 and so yeah, I was in the late 80s is when I was the Super Friends watching age.
There you go.
For those
Um,
later seasons. It was called Superpowers at the time, and I had a
mhm.
lot of those Superpowers action figures.
Ooh, DVD and figures. Has anyone read the 2019 Wonder Twins comic? Is it worth checking out? Yes. It's where I fell in love with Stephen Bernard. It's also where I just said, hey, like maybe I'm a Mark Russell fan. Um, there's a lot of great satire in it, and if you are looking for bungee jumping fun with satire, I would definitely check it out. I guess my question would be, have you read any of other Mark Russell's works? Because what's that? He Flintstones is great, and he also did another comic that is blanking off the top of my head that I also enjoyed. But I would definitely check again. Like if you like this comic, I would definitely check out the 2019 Wonder Twins. Yeah, he talks to fish. So what? Do you know what piece? Yeah, somebody told me. My one of my buddies told me that he spoiled some parts of season 2 for me, and I was like, oh, that's what they did with Aquaman. That's not my. I didn't say it. The Super Friends was the first DC Finest I missed, but after hearing your take, I'm going to pick it up. That's some stuff, Matt. The Super
Nice.
Friends, yeah, Super Friends introduced the Global Guardians and including future Justice League members Fire and Ice, two of my favorite Justice Leaguers. It did surprise me to see them bring in contemporary DC continuity notes. I expected the Super Friends to be based in their own continuity, but no, apparently not. Uh, Yeah, animation was done much like comics, only with a lot more pictures. Was what was the book about Alex Toth animation work called again, Kurtis?
It was called Genius Animated. It's actually part of a three-part biography of Alex Toth called Genius Isolated, Genius Illustrated, and Genius Animated. And the animated volume focuses on his animation career. The other two volumes are fantastic as well because they reprint just a ton of old, obscure Alex Toth comics and stuff that hasn't even stuff that hasn't been seen before. And the biography to go along with it is really good.
There you go. So that is a high recommendation from Kurtis on that front. Yeah, editorial notes are incredibly cool. Especially in this book. I want to give another big shout out to Bridwell was the Al Ewing of his time. I think is what I'm trying to say. Have the Wonder Twins ever made it to the DC universe? Yes, Brian Michael Bendis. You can thank him for that. When they introduced the Wonder Comics line back in 2019, they wanted to bring in elements of the fun. Bendis, I believe he used the word fun almost exclusively in all of the interviews that he had on a show that used to be called DC Daily. Now it's something else because Sam Humphries, what was he writing at the time? He was writing Harley Quinn at the time, brought Brian Michael Bendis on and said, yeah, I wanted to bring all of these series into some part of the main universe, and Wonder Twins just happened to be a part of that. Dial H for Hero, or that version of it, which Sam Humphries was also writing, also happened to be a part of that same Wonder Comics line, and then Young Justice by Bendis, and later on Amethyst would get her own. So yeah, the Wonder Twins are now part of mainstream DC continuity. Again,
Nice.
yeah, so there you go. I never want to see the Teen Titans go. Sorry. Bad joke. A lot of Global Guardians appearance makes you fear. Yep, indeed. So this is indeed the setup to what would be a comedy in JLI. I really do want them to print out JLI and DC Finest. I don't know why they haven't done it yet, but if we can get this one Super Friends issue out, we can definitely get JLI in as well. So yes, so there's the conversation there. Yeah, Zan is in current issues of Aquaman looking for Jana, I believe. There is a lot that the Wonder Twins are doing in nowadays. You know, we might be all better for it. So yeah, maybe we can get an Aquaman by Jeremy Adams and John Tim's omnibus someday. Don't step on Legos if you're the absorbing man. It's a good good part. Will we be early in December? Only 2 books to cover, and the last Friday drops on right on Christmas. That is actually a good question, Kurt, because we'll talk about it later in the show, but we are planning something different for next month because I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not really looking forward to talking about Golden Age Batman or Golden Age Wonder Woman, but we do have something different planned, and we'll go into that later. Any info about when the second DC Finest Crisis on Infinite Earths is coming out? I do know when it is coming out. I cannot say though, so keep on the lookout for that on the Mother Channel. Is that what we're calling it? A local comic shop had a selection of trades for $4 each for Black Friday, so I bought a stack. I'm jealous. What'd you buy? I don't get
That's
deals.
great. Good deals.
Those are good deals. My shop has. They didn't do any Black Friday deals this year, but we do have a bargain bin selection where trade paperbacks are only $3 in that section. So I've gotten some good stuff in there. Sometimes sparse backgrounds make sense when they want you to concentrate on the foreground, but often the sparsity was overdone. I can feel it. Yeah, Super Friends added to the list from Pookie9121. Thank you for watching, gosh. Alex Toth Horror Finest has amazing art, for certain. There was also a version of the Wonder Twins in Extreme Justice, which started in 1994 and ran just shy of 2 years. They were never fully integrated into that. But I was also reading through the JLA Book 1 to Thicker trade paperback, and they did have a section with them and their profiles for like the secret origins and files and issues or whatever you want to call them, and they were in there. So yeah, hi everybody from Phil Owens, the awesome co-host of the Epic Marvel podcast, just popped in to say hello and leave a like.
Hi, Phil. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you too. Dom has inside information. You know what? I did make a weird running in a couple of days ago, but yeah, we have a lot of cool books upcoming. That's all I will say. Wonder Woman, from the Golden Age is a mood. I love it, but I admit it's an acquired taste.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it
definitely
really is.
it fully is. But I can tell you one thing that isn't an acquired taste though, and that is at the hands of something. I actually am interested to hear what your thoughts on this are, Kurtis, because I think my taste for this is definitely a little bit different, maybe from others. But this is the DC finest war. The Big Five arrive as part of one of the, or named after one of the stories in the book. We've got Rob Kanigher, Rob Bernstein, Dave Wood, Bill Finger, and Bob Haney on the writer's block for this one. We also got an incredible array of talent in illustrations from the names Ross Andrew, Jack Abel, Gil Kane, Dick Dillon, Jerry Grandinetti, who I absolutely loved in DC Finest Horror, the legendary Joe Kubert, Jack Abel, Art Petty, and Irv Novick. The series collected in here are our Army at War 54 to 57, Star Spangled War Stories 53 to 56, GI Combat 44 through 47, Black Hawk 108 to 111. I have some things to talk about that for later. Our Fighting Forces 17 through 20, and All American Men of War issues 41 through 44, all published in the time frame from January through April of 1957. In this particular DC Finest block, we have a plethora of 4 to 6 page stories, very much structured like the anthology issues before it. Although this one, I definitely had, this is for me personally, I had an easier time reading this because the stories were just about as short as the Superman family stories, where we had those 4 to 6 page stories, and a lot of them are the same from here. You've got an incredibly different amount of perspectives running from different blocks of the army, all fighting in different theaters of war. You also have a couple of issues where, hey, some people might be stranded on an island and some people are helpless and maybe they have sometimes a needs, or sometimes it's fighting off against an incredibly large tank. You have nothing to destroy. You need to be creative with the destruction of it. But Kurtis, what were your thoughts on this particular DC Finest, and how does it compare to other war stories you might have read?
Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack
There.
there. I brought a couple of other examples that we
Yes.
can talk about in comparing other war comics. So we'll do that in a little bit. Before I get into my thoughts, I just want to give a little bit of history here. The title of this book, The Big Five Arrive, is actually not from a story in the book, but it's a reference to the fact that DC had acquired some war comics from some other companies, and that they were kind of refocusing a lot of their own comics to be more war focused, because that was actually really popular at the time. So, um, war stories. I'm going to go through this here. So War Stories actually started as a comic called Star Spangled Comics in 1941. Ran for 131 issues, and then with issue 132, it changed its name to War Stories. And then later on in issue 205, it would change its name again to The Unknown Soldier, um, who has comics in the later War Stories issues. None of them in this book, though. And then All American Men of War was actually originally called All American Comics in 1939, one of DC's earliest titles. It lasted for 102 issues before changing its name to All American Western, and then with issue 127 changed it to All American Men of War, and it ran till 1966. And GI Combat was originally from Quality Comics, and it ran for 43 issues before it got acquired by DC, and it ran for a total of 288 issues, and it's where Sergeant Rock and the Haunted Tank get their start. Fighting Forces was always called Fighting Forces. It was one of DC's comics starting in 1954. And then Our Army at War also ran for 103 issues. And it's where Sergeant Rock and Enemy Ace got their start. And eventually, Our Army at War changes its name to start Sergeant Rock in issue 302. And we are getting a Sergeant Rock DC Finest coming up next year. So we're going to see a continuation of that series in that book. So those are the big five. The big five arrive. We're talking about war stories, All American Men of War, GI Combat, Fighting Forces, and Our Army at War. And then but peppered in here, they also included the comic Blackhawk, which is kind of more of a superhero title,
For sure.
just with army guys, and it's definitely the odd duck out of these the comparing it to the other five comics. Okay, so my thoughts on this book is that I really enjoyed this. I thought it had a lot of great writing. I like the short form storytelling. I think that you can do a lot with that. It does a ton to give you different perspectives. There's one story here where the war is told from the perspective of a tree. So like you get a lot
That's
of
one of my
different
favorite stories in
perspectives.
the whole DC Finest too. It's crazy.
Yeah. But it's really well done. The artwork is outstanding. Especially the Joe Kubert issues are standouts because he has such a distinct style and he does a lot with the work here. But all of the other artists we get in here are really good, and they're just thoughtful stories. You have to be careful with war stories because they can dip into propaganda, which there definitely is an element of that to these stories for sure. And there's also, they could typically dip into an element of stereotypes because of the villains they're trying to portray at this time, which they definitely do get into this as well. Um, those aside, the story and the writing on their own merit are excellent.
I agree on that front. Nope, no pun intended, by the way. Um, the black. I like that you mentioned the Black Hawk ones too, because that was also like It was also a comic that was published by Quality Comics, before Quality was bought by whatever what eventually would become DC. Um, and it does feel like they always like that specific comic has a different set of tone than your regular, again, like, hey, like I'm jumping out of a plane or I need to go destroy a tank, like what can we do about this? um and the reason to why I think it also partly strikes something with me is because that of all of these war stories uh has a character that pops up in the comic. She doesn't pop up here, but she pops up in the later issue. um she eventually becomes one of the members of the Birds of Prey and becomes an integral member, and somebody who is a part of Gail Simone's team for at least quite a while. And in that, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, like in the greater context of DC, are any of these stories going to stick out? Like, should there be a reason to why someone will buy this instead of like, okay, like you're a random couple of short war stories, go ahead and keep it in. But I like those Black Ops stories just because they do feel like, hey, like we've got a ragtag team of 7 aviators and they need to go do certain missions or save something or whatever it might be. Sometimes they get stuck on an island and they think that there are people in certain danger and they turn out not to be. But I do think like of all of these, maybe it's just because of the character who does pop up in the later issue. Maybe it's just because of the bias that I have for her because I'm used to seeing a Lady Blackhawk in modern superhero comics. I really do enjoy those issues the most. That being said, I can't disagree with all of the quality from the war stories because yeah, they're great. They've got some cute stuff in it too. Stuff where you're attracted to whatever the conflict is going on in some particular issues, and they're tied up, they're neat, they're nice, and I don't know if I was looking for any more than that. It wasn't like I'm reading a Garth Ennis. I'm reading Garth Ennis's Sarah, and I'm expected to be hooked on to the main character. I went in realizing like, okay, most of these characters I'm probably never ever going to see again in my life. So let me just see um, how tightly packed and concise these stories are. Which I think, to the credit of everybody who worked on this book, they were for the most part. So it's a good experience for me.
So I'm going to take the opposing viewpoint here that I actually think the Black Hawk stories were the weakest part of the book.
Interesting.
I didn't like them as much because they stood out as being so different. Because we're getting some incredible stories of bravery and heroic feats and whatever, all of that kind of stuff. And then we get there's a story of the main guy in Black Hawk who dresses up as a supervillain in order to trick his guys into being a better team together or whatever. And it's like, this is so weird that this is right in the middle of like we're getting this fantasy science fiction story in these other tales that are supposed to be portraying quite a bit more realism. And I'm like, it's just why aren't we giving Black Hawk its own title, its own DC Finest? So that I mean, I will say that the stories were well told and such, but that was kind of weird. The other thing I don't like about Black Hawk is that there is this one Asian stereotype character that serves no purpose to any of the stories. He's just there in the background to be a stereotype with exaggerated, stereotypical features and such, and never ever serves any purpose in any of the stories. So I was like, why do we have this character here?
It's typical 50s stuff, but then again, maybe I
Yeah.
should have expected more. Uh,
Well, but it's interesting because the rest of here's where I'm going to bring in some comparisons here. Did you notice
mhm.
that through these stories we never we never see the bad guys? On a very rare occasion, do we ever see the face
Mhm.
of any of the Nazis or any of the Japanese or any of the communists? We never see, they're always like hiding in a bush
Mhm.
or they're in a plane when you can't see through the window or, all this kind of stuff is really focused on the heroes.
Right.
And they're fighting a faceless villain. And I thought that was really interesting to see. And that's not to say that we never see the bad guys. There are, especially when you get to the back half of the book, they start lightening up on that. So we have these soldiers and they have Nazi symbols in their helmets. And then so this caricature, when you see that, it really stands out because it's not very common in the book at all, actually. But look how yellow this guy's face is. Like, that's not okay.
It is not. No.
So that's where it's dipping into the propaganda and such. At this point, what years did we say this is? This is
Just
1957.
1957.
So, the war is still fresh in people's minds. If you were, 20 and drafted into World War II, you're only 30 years old at this point, and you possibly still reading these comics. Um, and it's just so there's that there. So it was interesting to see that those elements were actually downplayed. And so I brought a couple of examples of other comics, war comics that are similar. There's the EC Comics Two-Fisted Tales. A lot of these ones are by Harvey Kurtzman and a lot of the other people who were working for EC at the time. And these comics, so the DC Finest actually stays relatively in World War II. They don't really dip out of World War II at all. Two-Fisted Tales um, goes a lot more into other wars. Like we're talking not Vietnam, Korea and World War One, and they go even back in time to some other historical battles and such. A lot of it's World War II though, and I find that these comics deal more with the bad guys and they are way more of a commentary on the actual atrocities of war and the effect it has on people rather than trying to show it all as like here are brave heroic troops like DC Finest does. So in that sense DC Finest is a lot more propaganda than these stories here because they are not showing the downsides to war. People die in these issues. In DC Finest, people don't die. The soldiers they all get out of things. There are some deaths for the sake of storytelling, but you don't really see any of that. They downplay that side of things, whereas EC comics, there are people dying all the time. The other example I have is the Atlas Comics Library Volume 4, War Volume 1. They have two volume numbers. This is Atlas Comics was Marvel before they became Marvel Comics. And so these are comics from the 50s as well. All and they had a comic that was just called War Comics. So this reprints the first 8 issues. And this one is really different as well because it leans heavy into the propaganda. Again, this one features different wars. Usually the lead story, I think, is Korea. And then it does a lot of World War II stories. And then as you get to the back half of this book, it's a lot more Korea and it's a lot more commentary on Korea. And you see a lot of more Asian stereotypes in this one as well. It's just the different way that different comic book companies were handling the war stories. It's interesting to see. These ones are much more propaganda. The storytelling is also weaker. They don't have the same. There's some Asian stereotypes there, but yeah, they don't have the same quality in terms of the writing, and even in the artwork, it looks nice, but it's quite stiff. These stories get very, very wordy. They like to talk and explain things in exposition more than showing things. So in total, I think I actually like the DC Finest the best out of the three of these, but also the EC comics are always a good read, so worth checking out there.
Okay, I'll keep those recommendations in mind, Kurtis, because most of my experience with war comics are of the Garth Ennis variety, because those are usually what is recommended to me. Like the D Dodgers, one of my favorite war stories. Even more recently, too, like Jeff Johns kind of tipped his toes into the war genre with Junkyard Joe. Dead Lucky, which is a part of the Radiant Black universe or the Massiverse, also very much geared like a war story. Enjoyed that. Yeah, Sarah and Out of the Blue are two of my favorites. So a lot of my experiences have definitely been more modern. So I'm trying to compare myself with, like my experiences with those and my experiences with these completely different in those ways. But I just love the war one just because of like how great the art is and like pretty much every single issue. I mean, there's no weaknesses. I find at all in any of those stories and in the way that they've looked. So yeah, it gets a +1 from me.
Yeah. Hey, Dom,
Yes.
there's a comment that I want you to highlight from James Moore. He just posted here. He says, "Are the EC comics pre-code? Pretty sure the DC stuff is post-code." And he's right. So the EC comics and the stuff from Atlas is early 50s, and then Seduction of the Innocent came out in 1954 and started the whole you know, comics
Comics
are
Code
evil
Authority,
kind of
right,
a
right.
thing, and started the comic code. So this book is 1957. So yes, there is a shift, and that's a good distinction to make. So when I was saying there are no deaths and the stereotypes are played down, the bad guys aren't seen yet, all of that is probably because of the pre-code, um, uh, whatever they're called, all of the guidelines that they were putting out there. So and it shows, it makes a difference. And I actually kind of found the value in that in DC Comics. Doesn't work for every
Mm-hmm.
comic that they were censoring or whatever, but it did work for this
Oh,
one.
for sure.
Um,
As my
yeah.
camera dies, I will turn it back on. But yeah, I agree.
Whoops. Yeah.
Um, I do want to make a small point of notice, just as I try to attempt to turn this thing back on. Um, I find a lot of the stories in the DC Finest War trade paperback a lot more readable in the sense that like some of the pages too, like they're only 5, 6 panels each. They're not overtly long drawn out comparatively to a lot of the other DC Finest that we've read at the same time. So they don't take up too long. And even in the stories where there are more panels on the page, because they're only 4 to 6 pages each in terms of the story length, you're not going to stick around with it for long. Like they're not overtly long, drawn out reads. So the time consumption on these, I feel, are much more optimal for everybody who might just want a quick, hey, like this is what's going on and whatever front of the war, or whatever you're reading, versus, oh my goodness, it's another 20-page story. It's gonna take 30 minutes to read each one. You don't get any of that in here.
No, it's actually a really great read. Yeah, it's easy, and there's enough variety in there too. So we're not just focusing on, the general infantry. It's like there's the Navy, there's the Air Force, and they go all over the place, dealing with different aspects of the war and the different parts of the army. The Marines are featured in here sometimes, and all this kind of stuff. So um, it's not a stuffy read at all. I had way more fun and way more interest reading these stories than I did with the science fiction book. That's for sure.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be at the tops for me in terms of the genre books that we've had. Um, yeah, science fiction is still by far, I think, the weakest
Yeah.
of the anthologies that
Yep.
we've had. But yeah, those are our thoughts on the DC Finest War anthology series. I hope they continue, so that I want them to continue, because I just need Lady Blackhawk's first appearance on my bookshelf. I think that at this point, that is what I am longing and pining for. If they are
Yep.
going to continue this war anthology, but yeah, consider it well. Um,
I will say though, this book has the months printed on it because all of these issues take place in 1957. So the spine says January to April 1957. And because there's six titles represented in this book. So if they're only going to be printing these with what is it, 4 months worth of comics at a time, it's going to take a lot of volumes to get through this. Like if they only do one a year, it's going to take like decades to get through all of these, the whole series. So my guess is that they're not going to plan on releasing everything because more than likely this line will die before everything is released. That's just the nature of things. Like literally it's going to take 25 to 30 years to get through all of these books if they do only 4 months at a time every year. And
and
so,
yeah,
um, but that's fine because it's not an ongoing story. It's just one and done. You can pick up this volume and never pick up another one, and you'd be absolutely fine. So we'll see how far they get. But
it,
I'm not hoping my bookshelf is not ever probably going to have a whole complete collection of war comics from start to finish.
no, which is unfortunate, because this volume only has, like you mentioned, the post quality bought out DC issues. I don't know if they have the quality comics ones on hold, or if they have them scanned, or if they still need to be restored. But I think I have a lot less hope for those versus like them moving on forward with future issues. So we shall see what.
I'd be happy if they skip around.
Yeah,
If they skip around and like pull out a volume from the late 60s or pull out the whatever, like they don't have to do them in order. And so it would be great if they jumped around a little bit.
indeed. Yeah, we got the Messerschmitt B129s reference in this, but we never see them. You never see the pilots. But you know what? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that is okay. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk with the people in the chat. We got Carson saying Gold and Silver Age very acquired taste, not just at DC, which is also fair point, because I do know people that just don't want to get into it, and that's okay with me. Um, Recent bargains. We got €5 trades at Traveling Man Stand, at Thought Bubble, Flutter, Ripple Effects, and a Captain Marvel Thickie Saga Compendium at Forbidden Planet with a crease cover marked down to €20. Get me some of those deals, man. I want them. Uh, Stuff gets expensive the more you add them up. Only picked up the war comic this month. Definitely a better read than the superhero comics through the 60s. Yeah, I would pick this over. Like if you asked me if I would rather read this over Spectre or Justice League of America, I'd probably pick War over those two.
Yeah.
So, um,
Although I really enjoyed Spectre, but I think this volume was a stronger one in general.
yeah. Um, I got James Ware got the Bendis Secret War, House of M, More Yuppies from Hell, ESPers, Steampunk, uh, by Joe Kelly and Chris Bacalo. Oh, Moon Knight by Ellis Wood and Bunn, and James Robinson Invader Trades. Congrats on the Ellis and Brian Wood and Cullen Bunn Moon Knight trade. I mean, those have been way out. I know people have been wanting a reprint on all those, but those are hard to find. I like the DC Finest War, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming Western. Really wish Marvel would follow suit with Rawhide Kid, Two Gun Kid, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be nice.
went to Half Price Books the other day, found an out of print X Force Executioner Song Epic, Rawhide Kid,
Nice.
softcover Masterwork War Kings. Oh my goodness, oversized hardcover and Spider Man by McFarlane. Come on, man. Everybody's finding good deals. DC really is the master at absorbing other publishers, even pre Crisis. Yes, the Sergeant Rock DC Fine should also be great. Batman Loves Comics, aka the Joker Man. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Good morning. War must be even more hellish if you're in a if you're a tree. Makes total sense. The no trees were wait hold on. I can't say no trees were harmed in making of the publishing of this book because this publishing of the book requires. Dang it, guys! Oh, I can't even do that simple message. Agree. Can't wait for Sergeant Rock. Almost didn't buy this war because it didn't have Easy Company in it, but I'm glad I changed my mind. Didn't have Stormtrooper armor yet, so they had to hide in other ways.
Yeah, the talking about deaths in the comics.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed. Thing is, though, Kurtis, the war comics did feature short one-page humor war strips, which really should have been added to this.
What, really? Oh
I would
man,
have loved
I want to see
those.
those. Yeah, totally. I would love those too.
I do love
Like,
comics.
where else are they gonna? I guess they could stick them in a humor book, but
Humor,
that
yeah,
would
DC
like,
Finest humor or
where
something.
else are you gonna reprint those?
That's what, that kills
That's too
me.
bad.
That sucks. I would have loved to see those.
I'm gonna
Um,
have to look them up.
Interesting to see Sergeant Rock is considered popular enough for a finest, but not Blackhawks, just like Captain Comet wasn't big enough to escape the science fiction finest. Um, that is a good point, but I think Sergeant Rock definitely, at least from the people that I talk to, and by people I talk to, I mean like around my age, they definitely know Sergeant Rock more than Captain Comet. So maybe that's just one thing.
Yeah.
But something that is featured from around the same era, but stuff that I actually did enjoy quite much the last time, and we get to see again is the follow up to the previous Green Lantern DC Finest, which started off with the second volume instead of the first volume of the Silver Age, and this is effectively the third volume, which is Earth's Other Green Lantern. You got John Broome, Gardner Fox, and Bob Haney, along with Gil Kane and Win Mortimer on a Brave and the Bold issue. This specific volume collects Flash 168, Green Lantern 40 through 61, and Brave and the Bold issue number 69. This is, again, a continuation of the first DC Finest volume that we had. But just like that, it is still the same Silver Age Green Lantern stories, very much functional in the previous volume that we had. And this time, we get to see more of the world building for what is effectively the pocket spot of Hal Jordan and as the Green Lantern. And not only learn more about him, but we also have more info and intel into what the Guardians of the Universe do and what their role is in the DC Universe. We've got the first team up of Hal Jordan and Zatanna. Zatanna, who we saw in the DC Finest Hawkman series, and now she gets her bump in here in issue 42 or 43, if my mind recalls correctly. We've also got more of the Hal and Barry Allen team up, Fashionata, the two best friends doing stuff that only Silver Age folks can do. So we got a little bit of that as well. We've also got a Brave and the Bold issue where Bruce and Hal also managed to stop person called the Time Commander. Who might that be? We also got Sinestro appearing in what I believe is one of the most iconic Green Lantern Green Lantern covers of all time, issue number 52. And if I can pull that up later, I will. Also, of course, the first appearance of Guy Gardner, because as many people might know, this is where Guy Gardner first shows up in an issue very much structured like a what if issue, that we also get to see the origin of the one and only Hal Jordan. But yeah, Kurtis, I don't know if I have a full I mean, a lot of the feelings I have for this book is very much the same as the previous Silver Age Green Lantern, but I want to know what you think.
Oh, I think you should go first this time.
I should go first.
I went first the last two times.
You did go first. Okay. It still feels like I am just adding more, if you even want to call it the knowledge that I am getting, in part to seeing how Grant Morrison and Jeff Johns were influenced in their particular stories with this Green Lantern. Black Hand shows up. A lot of these are, again, they're of that same variety of, there's a part 1, there's a part 2, there's a part 3 even sometimes with some of these Silver Age stories. We get to see Hal Jordan rough up against plenty of other characters as well. You have stories where Hal Jordan needs to perhaps find a Green Lantern. Somebody is missing. Flash needs help. Hal Jordan is obviously going to be there to help him. I want to spotlight, though, on the Guy Gardner issue, which is, I think, my favorite overall, if only for the fact that I like seeing origin stories told through a different lens of view, where we not only get to see Hal Jordan's origin, somebody who is just walking about a day. Abin Sur just happens to be a Green Lantern on the on the verge of death, and he needs to find somebody to be his successor in terms of the way that he is propped up as one of the guardians of the universe. Not an actual guardian of the universe, but somebody who helps protect the universe from evil. They also need to find somebody who's very strong-willed, and on essentially his deathbed, which is the inside of the plane that Abin Sur is flying, he realizes, hey, I need to go find somebody before it's too late. They find Hal Jordan, and lo and behold, Hal Jordan manages to effectively be as will-powered enough to become the Green Lantern, a Green Lantern who is the protector of Sector 2814. But in that, we also get to see what is a different future had Hal Jordan not been the one to receive the ring. And that person happens to be Guy Gardner, who gets particularly a different, we get to see a different story. We get to see him face some of the different challenges that Hal Jordan is facing in his time as Green Lantern. We get to see, oh my goodness, like, what does he still have to face? Sinestro? Does he still have to face the same characters that Hal Jordan gets to prop up against the Green Lanterns? But what it does is it shows you that different mindset, that different perspective of had Guy Gardner, who at this point doesn't have his bowl cut. He has this very, I'm looking at it right now. I don't even know what this haircut is, but whatever this haircut is, shout out to his barber for giving Guy Gardner the absolute worst haircuts imaginable in terms of DC characters. But we do get to see a nice ending off of the issue of maybe there can be something more with this character, an establishment of somebody set in stone, and seeing, well, what plans can we have for this particular future character. And they end off with Hal Jordan and Guy Gardner being, perhaps friends, and it won't be for another long while where we get to see Guy Gardner suiting up as the Green Lantern again. But we do effectively get to see the start of what would be a part of a larger narrative with Steve Englehart in the 80s with his Green Lantern Corps run. There's still plenty of, I'll just say, outdated stereotypes, as all of these books do. Guy Gardner is also pitted with a very yellow face in this issue as well, which isn't exactly what I want to see from my protagonist, but I understand it's the 60s, and so life is different. But it's still very much in the same fashion off as all the other Silver Age books, and in that, I can definitely not only just appreciate what John Broome was doing here with this book, it's still very much the same enjoyable Silver Age material that I had from the last, and just getting to see different facets of what is and will be the Green Lantern universe for years to come. So that those are my thoughts because I love Green Lantern, and I'm really glad that I continued reading more of the Silver Age material.
So Green Lantern was definitely one of the strongest DC finest of this early Silver Age that I've read when the first volume came out last year. And so this volume I think is even better. They draw like you've already explained, they um they increase the lore of Green Lantern and they keep on exploring the Guardians and showing off that little bit more. We get more and more of the other Guardians from the other sectors showing up and such, and that's really interesting. I like seeing that and Green Lantern learning more about his own, you know, Lantern heritage, if you will, and but so that was really interesting.
So I
Stories are great. And what I really enjoyed is seeing the evolution of comics portrayed through this book here. The first half of this book are all, there's two stories per issue. So they're all like short, whatever they are, 8-page stories. And they feature different villains. And so there's one where the first story is featuring the Star Sapphire, and then the second one is featuring another villain called Major Disaster or something like that. And they're unrelated. And then partway through this book, the two stories become related, and it says to be continued in this issue, and it goes on and tells the rest of the story. So we're getting complete one issue stories, which is a development for comics, DC Comics at this time. And then as you go further into the book, then all of a sudden we're getting two-part stories. It's to be continued in the next issue, which is a novelty at the time. And so then we can develop stories with just more plot that you can explore. And so the stories as you get into this book get better and better because they're able to just have more interesting stories because they're not limited to just 8 to 10 pages. And then in an interesting move, partway through this book, Hal Jordan decides that he doesn't want to stay in Coast City anymore. And so now we have an ongoing story through the next like 12 issues where he's going on a journey of self-discovery. And it's even though the stories are individual through this arc, you have an overarching story that is very unusual for this time. And so it's just great to see the process of how comic books are being written as told through this book here. So I really enjoyed that. Also, um, Gil Kane is one of the main artists in this book, and he's really great. Halfway through this book, he starts inking himself, and he becomes the Green Lantern, or sorry, the Green Lantern. He becomes the artist that I'm more familiar with. I know Gil Kane, especially through his work in Marvel, through titles like Incredible Hulk, and when he goes on to Spider-Man and such, and even his comic strip called Starhawks. That's where I know his stuff. And so when he's being inked by other artists earlier on in this book, he looks very different. He conforms more to the DC house style. But then when he starts inking himself, it's like all of a sudden this is Gil Kane coming into his own, and it's great, and I really like it. And he's got an inking style that's very reminiscent of what Alex Toth would do when he inks himself, and so it has that feel to it. The last thing I want to note is the last issue in this book. Also, Gil Kane has it's very different in that he colors in, or the colorist at least colors in all of the margins, so it gives this whole all of the art kind of this full bleed sense, even though it's not full bleed. He does things like uh, characters are popping in and out of the panels. Let's see if I can find a good example of that here. I think it was earlier. Yeah, yeah. So like characters. He's punching this character outside of the panel, and then you get images like this showing the big face with all of the action and like a montage behind it. And even like this massive double panel right here bathed in green. So it's like this is very different than all of the other stuff that we see, which is much more standard Silver Age comic. What is the difference with this last issue here? Well, a couple of months before this, or I would say maybe 6 months before this, Jim Steranko started his run on X-Men. And that changed a lot of how comics were drawn because he was very revolutionary in the way he was approaching his comic page. And I think Gil Kane was trying to mimic a lot of that. There's also a lot of Gene Colan influence in that last issue, and Gene Colan was also another mover and shaker around this time, doing different things with panel layouts and that kind of stuff, making bigger panels to show more beautiful art and that kind of thing. So I think that Gil Kane, it seemed like he was trying to mimic some of the success they were seeing, or maybe it was an editorial mandate. I'm not sure, but it's very noticeable in that. Only in that final issue. That's the only one. So I'm hoping that the follow-up book for this one is going to show more of that. And I'm really excited because this book got better as it went along.
You get to see just like as you said, like more of the universe being unfolded, and all the characters that we were already partly familiarized with in the last volume get more to do, effectively in this one. Even when characters like Sinestro like pop up again, or Star Sapphire, gosh, pop up again, it always feels like there's always something being added, to their long list of footnotes, and it's never like it's just your standardized. Here's a one-off random story that's just happening or whatever. So in Green Lantern, like we would see maybe in Superboy or some of the Superman comics we've read, it always feels like there is another chapter of everybody's lives in this title, being unfolded. And it's even like with me and my fanboy tendencies of like, I'm going to just focus on one person, and that one person will stick through, for the rest of the issue. It always seems like there's something else that is going to be added to Hal Jordan's life to make it more messy, or for him to grow as a character. Like, I can now understand why people like Hal Jordan, like love Hal Jordan as a character, or like this is why like Hal is my favorite, or like I was really happy when Hal was brought back into the limelight in 2004. And all of that is being unfolded in here, even with other characters too popping up. Like you got to see Elongated Man. Always nice to have him pop up. We only got like part glimpses. I don't want to call him that, but we got to see him in the Justice League of America right before Crisis on Infinite Earth hit, and then getting to see a Silver Age version of Ralph Dibny was incredibly nice to see. And the Black Hand also popping up too, one of my favorite characters from the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run, also making more waves in more, not in this one. And even with the rivalry between Alan Scott and Hal Jordan, and how different those two are in terms of how they operate on a level. I know that Alan isn't part of the core, but he definitely does feel like a very important character in this book, and I am very, very happy with seeing all of that fold out and play here. And Alan Scott also just happens to be a major character in that last issue, like as you showed, Kurtis. So yeah, it's a plus. It's another one of these pluses for me. Maybe it's just because I grew up reading Green Lantern. Maybe it's just because I like seeing all of these characters, pushed into a different light. But I can see like all of, what Steve Englehart would be able to do later, Ron Mars, and of course Jeff Johns with their respective long runs on Green Lantern. It's all placed in here, and I'm very happy to have read it.
One thing I found funny was that because there's a Green Lantern of Earth 2, the Golden Age Green Lantern, they want to team these guys up all the time, but they're in parallel universes. So like Green Lantern's ring, and I don't know if he can still do that. It just allows him to hop over to the other dimension, like no problem. He's like, I'm just gonna pop over to Earth 2 now,
Yeah,
and he's like, use my ring, boom, I'm there, all the time, like
yeah,
every single time. Same, like both lanterns are like that.
yeah.
They're just
Mhm.
flipping back and forth between dimensions like it's nothing.
Yeah. It doesn't work like that anymore. That wasn't the Green Lantern that I grew up with. So seeing all
Yeah.
of these different things that the Power Ring can do, I was like, wait, it can do that? If it can do that, like why wasn't I able to see that when I was like growing up reading comics? Because like more or less now or so, it's just a big weapon of mass destruction that just happens to be on their hands. Yeah, that's the Green Lantern that I grew up with. Um, I'm trying to think if there's like particularly anything else that I did find the Star Sapphire focus issue very interesting because I do think it kind of shows um the idea. I'm trying to figure out the best way to word it. The ideas of feminism during the '60s and how John Broome was even like should we give someone like Star Sapphire focus? Now obviously there is the romance between Carol and Hal that does partly get focused. I do think there are some outdated reference, just the way that she's portrayed, in the particular issue. But I will commend Broome for realizing, like, yeah, she is an important part of Green Lantern's or Hal Jordan's life, and she shouldn't just be pushed off because she is a particular love interest or anything. So maybe I think that's part of like some of more of the stuff where I'm conflicted in, but I can see like the decent intentions that Broome had with the Star Sapphire focused issue, anyways.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is interesting seeing relationships portrayed in this era. Even what year is this? 1965. Um, it's definitely the girl fawns over the guy, and but as soon as there's a wedding proposal by another guy, she's over there with another guy.
Right.
It's like so there's I don't know if this is a spoiler, but we're going to talk about it. The reason why Hal Jordan leaves Coast City is because Carol gets engaged to somebody else and is going to be married to somebody else. But that comes right out of the
Right.
blue. It's like there's a phone call, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm getting married," and Hal's like, "What?" And he's like, I'm leaving. And it's like that, there's that kind of thing all throughout this book. And that's very typical of the way that women were portrayed in
Mhm.
these stories as well. Not very many female superheroes. They were not even sidekicks. They were the love interests. And as soon as you need a plot device, they're used to either push the character in a certain direction or bring him back to where he should be.
I will also say it won't be the last time that Carol Ferris gets engaged and has a run-in with Hal Jordan. So
Yeah.
if this is the first time you read it, you're like, oh, maybe they'll change it. No, it's going to be a remaining plot fixture for even today. Like that issue between Carol and Hal and Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern, it's still a thing. Um, take of that as you may.
Oh, the cover of this book, it I was surprised that this cover is not an accurate representation of the issue
It's
itself.
clickbait, definitive clickbait.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's no fight. They don't meet as Green Lanterns at all because it's kind of a fictional story. I was surprised that it would even happen. Like
Yeah. Like I
that issue
mentioned,
took me by
it's a
surprise.
complete what it feels like a what if mixed in with a baked
It's
origin story.
Yeah, so I want to know like when does Guy Gardner actually become Green Lantern? Like where's his real origin story? Because this isn't it.
It's not until the Steve Englehart years where he gets
Okay.
the oh, I'm part of something bigger now. Um and it makes me it does make me wonder because Guy Gardner also wasn't he became a character known as the Warrior in the '90s, and I'm wondering, are they going if they ever do a DC Finest of that, will they include those specific Guy Gardner Warrior issues because he is a part of the core? Um, but yeah, like it. I was expecting a lot more in terms of like, oh, maybe Guy Gardner and Hal Jordan, like Guy Gardner somehow gets like Hal Jordan's ring or something. Maybe it was just a mislocation or like the actual person, Abin Sur, who held the ring. Maybe it was meant for Guy Gardner instead of Hal Jordan, but and then they find each other like, hey, you have my ring, and he's like, well, this is the coolest thing ever, and then they fight. There's nothing like that in the book, but
Right. Yeah. Nothing at all.
yeah, it is what it is. But yes, if you guys like Gil Kane, if you guys like Green Lantern, if you guys like world building, because I can say like I definitely do enjoy what they were playing with. It again reminds me of a lot of what Jeff Johns was doing in the 2000s. This is definitely the book for you. I don't know if we have. Yeah, let's go ahead and go with the chat. Guy Gardner is living proof that the Guardians and the Green Lantern's ring judgment isn't perfect at all, just like Sinestro. But I do think that is part of the charm of Guy Gardner's character, even though we don't get to see a lot of that, if any at all, in here. If we ever get, like I said, that Justice League International book, because Guy Gardner has, I'll just say that he has questionable taste in movies. Hopefully we can get to see some of the living flaws in his character in the future. Sinestro is like a yellow bad penny. He is that's definitely a way to put it. Do you feel there's an effort to structure Cosmic DC through the Green Lantern book, or is it still random alien stories like in the other titles? I definitely feel like this is the start to what they had in terms of, can we create a universe outside of the Earth that we do have that has living embodiments of characters that aren't just transfixed on, the actual planet Earth, the one that we do have. I do think that with getting to see characters like the Guardians of the Universe, characters like Sinestro, even if we are populated on the planet, I can definitely see the thoughts and seeds of, we can do something that is much grander on a scale outside of this planet. If this ring, which is as powerful as already is being portrayed, it has the potential to be something that requires extraterrestrial beings that aren't simply just on the planet. And I can definitely see that being the seeds of that planted in the starts of the Hal Jordan Silver Age run. I think you'd say the same, Kurtis.
I think so. Yeah, definitely planting the seeds. But I don't think that they had anything larger in mind. These titles don't really connect a whole lot. Like they have guest stars back and forth and stuff like that, but at this point there's still no real, like, we're forming a whole galaxy, a whole universe that is interconnected. That's still kind of in the pre-stages at this point.
Oh, for certain. And in that, yeah. Oh, it meant yellow as in wearing yellow power ring. It's crazy that nobody ever thought of him holding a core until the 2000s. But yes, indeed, he does have the opposite. And it is interesting to see how Sinestro and Star Sapphire later develop the emotional spectrum. Indeed, it is. I think the Green Lantern, next Green Lantern Finest, skips one volume and goes right through to the Hard Traveling Heroes material. You're right on that. We are going to be getting a time skip. So, hooray, we're going to get to see Mr. Oliver Queen ruin a comic book. No, I'm joking. Yeah, it is a super big and awkward on and off relationship for Hal. And also, unfortunately, won't be the only relationship that Hal Jordan has, as some people might or might not know. I think Kurtis, do you know the story of Hal Jordan and Arizi Rab? Okay, we're gonna keep it for a different episode.
Okay.
There was an analog, or there was analog or clickbait in the 60s already. Yes, indeed.
Of course. Comic book covers were notorious for it.
Indeed. Comic book covers, how many, like, I can't tell you how many times that we've had. I remember this like super old guy going to my comic shop talking about like I'll just say salacious figures in the 40s, and telling me like, oh, like I used to read these comics all the time, but I would always get mad because it was never properly portrayed, in inside of the comic versus out. was like, oh wow, those existed in the 40s, because yeah, apparently like a lot of pulp fiction was like that during that
You
time.
gotta sell the book.
Gotta, yeah, find a way to sell the book, right? Um, so there it is. How was Hal's personality portrayed in this era? I mean,
It's he's a pretty standard 1950s figure. He's level-headed. He doesn't rush into things without thinking about it. He's definitely like a leading man type of a character.
he is I will say this is he is as good as white pieces of bread can, like white loaves of bread can make you. That is the best way that I can portray, I think, Hal Jordan's personality. Not even just as a whole, but specifically in the Silver Age. He's he hates being surprised. He doesn't like it when other people are around telling you like, hey, like, um, I got engaged with another person, and then he goes ramp, and then he turns. Yeah, he doesn't like being cock block. I guess is maybe that's the word I like to use. So, I think that's the best way I can describe it. Jarn is he hates being cock blocked, and he's a good tasting piece of bread. I think that
That's
accurately
awesome.
I think that accurately describes Hal Jordan.
Yeah, okay. That's
Uh,
funny.
Cosmic DC was also structured through the Omega Men and Starfire later. It was, yeah, definitely, indeed. I mean, Tamaran obviously being a big part of that, and then what they were doing with the Omega symbol. Yeah, for sure. I can agree with that. War's my last DC Finest pre-order for a while, until Green Arrow and the Demon next year. Not interested in a lot of pre-70s Superman stories as well.
Yeah, we were talking about that. It's like the next few months we have a lot of Golden Age coming up because we have Batman and Wonder Woman next month, and then the following month is Superman Golden Age, and then the month after that is more Batman Golden Age. And so or no, sorry, more Wonder Woman Golden Age. So we have a lot of Golden Age coming up, and I think peppered in there, where's my list? Peppered in there is some what is it? Doom Patrol. So that's Silver
Yeah.
Age.
We got Doom Patrol. We've got the Golden Age Batman. We've got another Golden Age Wonder Woman. Um,
Yeah.
the one that pops up in more modern times, we're getting the Trial of Oliver Queen, which is the next Green Arrow DC
Right.
Finest, which
Yeah.
is the Mike.
That's the follow-up.
Yeah, it's
And then after that is Superman Time and Time Again. So we're getting we have December, January, and February of like a lot of Golden Age stuff. And then we're gonna get back into some more, you know,
yeah. I'm looking
post-crisis
through,
things.
and for titles that were published before 1986, we got two DC Finest that are Golden Age. We got Superman, Wonder Woman, Doom Patrol, Batman, Case of the Chemical Syndicate, Wonder Woman Enter the Cheetah, Demon Birth of the Demons. That's six. Fastest Man Dead, which is Bronze Age, which is still before 1986 or Crisis. Dead Man, which is eight. We have the Origins of the Justice League of America, Star of the Conqueror, which is nine. DC Finest Western, DC Finest Joker, so that's 11. And in that time
Wow.
frame, we only have four modern books. So this is all till the 14th of
The end of
April.
April. Yeah.
So yeah, like I've mentioned to Curtis, this show is going to be on at least when the new year hits. It will not fall on the last Friday. It will not fall on the last Friday of the month. So that is something we will keep you updated on as the well, whenever the next when the next DC Finest does roll around. Um, yeah, there are fascinating introspective scenes that show how Hal Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, and John Stewart see the power of the Green Lantern ring somewhere in the Green Lantern Crisis on Infinite Earths tie-ins. One of my favorite things in Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, I believe it was right before Sinestro Corps War, where John, Guy, and Kyle are all like just talking, roundabout, in space. They use their powers differently. Like they all use their constructs differently. Like John Stewart, he's a soldier, so obviously he would use more militaristic constructs. Kyle Rayner's a painter, and Guy Gardner, I'll just say, likes to smack the living heck out of some people. So getting to see all of those differently meshed together, I think it's one of my favorite for sure. With an announcement of an upcoming Firestorm series, as a Firestorm DC Find has been announced. What I will say for announcements, there are going to be plenty more. DC Finest is not going away. They are ramping up more of the production, and we will be hopefully able to see some of those titles soon. Yeah, so next week is Golden Age Superman, and the week after is DC Finest to Wonder Woman, as well. And Guy finally becomes a Green Lantern in Green Lantern Green Arrow 116, written by Dennis O'Neil.
There you go. Okay.
Mr. Dennis, but yeah, he doesn't get fully introduced or like being part of the core until the Steve Englehart run. Was there a reason why Last Days of Superman Finest was canceled or delayed? It's gonna be there's a lot of reshuffling around. They want to put in some books that they thought would be viable for release. It hasn't necessarily been like, oh, we're gonna put it off. It'll come back at a time, some point in the future as well.
I think that some people have the theory, because that book, I believe that book was the content that comes right after the last Superman Omni.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's volume 7. Yeah. So I think people are thinking that they took it off the schedule so that they can do like a Superman Golden Age volume 8 instead.
Which wouldn't be a bad idea or thought. And I also much prefer them to jump around stuff so they don't necessarily like have to spend more restoration or double dip with books that are coming out. I don't know. I don't think DC wants to ostracize sales if they are coming out with 2 of the same thing at the same time, and if it has never been printed before. So that is what I will say on that front. Yeah, we all want Firestorm. Kurtis and I definitely want Firestorm back. But as we bring this episode to a close, Kurtis and I next month, because I am not anticipating a decent discussion for the Golden Age Batman isn't for me. I've read some of those issues on the DC Universe Infinite app many a year ago. I can say that took a long time to read, and I don't know if I got anything out of it, at least for my enjoyment personally. So what we will be doing instead is we will be doing a top 5 list of 2 things. We will both have our top 5 lists of our favorite DC finest, and we will rank them accordingly of all the books that have come out, and I'm very interested to see what Kurtis's is. And we're also going to be doing our separate prospective top 5 lists of DC finest that new readers can get into and enjoy without having or needing a helping hand or holding. And I am very interested to see what Kurtis will have on there as well, because what we think might be reader friendly in one or what we think might be more reader friendly than the other will definitely differ. So I am very excited for that, Kurtis.
And when is that going to be?
That is a good question. We can schedule right on the docket right now, because Christmas Day, or the day after Christmas, is the 26th. Would you like to do that on the 19th?
Sure. Yeah, we could do that on the 19th. That would be fine with me.
Okay. So as it stands right now, we will have an early DC finest, because I do believe my family will probably have plans on the 26th. So I'm very, very excited for the prospect on that front. I'll have some graphics and moving stuff later in so we can do our top five. We'll be able to bring it in, chat with you guys. Not that we won't do like maybe a quick discussion of the Golden Age Batman and the Golden Age Wonder Woman. It's just those titles really don't do anything for me. I enjoyed the Superman one, if only for the fact that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster were the two people behind it, and I really adored what they brought to the front. I don't know if I can say the same for Batman, because I prefer other creators' interpretations of the character, but
What we will do, what I'm planning on doing though, is I do still want to find the positives. I always like to look at the positives. So even if I don't enjoy the book, which like I didn't enjoy Peacemaker and stuff like that, but I still was able to find some things to talk about that I did enjoy about it. And I plan to do that the same with these ones, especially Wonder Woman, which I already know because I've already read a lot of that is not that great.
Indeed. But you know what? I mean, we'll be able to talk about it next month, but I think having a woman superhero, especially in that time, albeit the differences between good character writing, if you even want to call it that, in the 40s versus today, obviously being different, but I think we can still definitely find something for that. And we do have a couple more questions before we round out the link. We round out the whole entire thing. Do we have an estimate for when the second half of 2026 collected editions will be announced? Omar is actually talking with the folks over at DC to see what we can do on that front. So be sure to keep on a lookout ahead. By the way, thanks for introducing us to DC Finest Static. I didn't buy the DC Finest, but I bought the Milestone Compendia. I love that book as well. Maybe we could do a tier in one of these months and maybe the offs where we talk about the DC Finest and whatnot. Maybe one day we'll do a tier list of all the books. I think the issue is I would have to make a tier list or like a graphic to integrate that in along with OBS is going to take a while, but I wouldn't oppose to doing it. Christmas party, it could be a Christmas party here that you could bring Finest Fridays to work, Karsten. That could work. Have us on the TV somewhere. But thank you guys so much for watching another one of Finest Fridays. We really, really do appreciate you guys being here with us on this Friday morning. And also not shopping on Black Friday, or maybe you are shopping online. I have no idea. But I also want to thank Kurtis for another time.
And I thank you, Dom, for all of that you put together here for this regular show. It's been really great.
Indeed. Hello and goodbye from Cyprus. I hope you're doing well. All you want to know, we are about to log off, but we do have all of the minutes here right immediate away on YouTube. Of course, you can check out Kurtis over at the Epic Marvel podcast, where he does his streamios and talks of all the epics along with cool unboxing videos in through day.
And we have an X-Men reading club that you'll want to we're working our way through Claremont's X-Men. We've been reading one issue a day for the past 40 something days now, and we'll continue until the very end. This week coming up, we're going to be reading through the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yes!
So I'm very excited.
Oh man, one of if not the most celebratory and important Marvel storylines ever published. And I am excited for you guys on that front. Of course, you can check out our Epic Facebook group here. As per link, thank you, James, for linking all of this. Along with the Epic Marvel Podcast Discord, we could talk to Kurtis. Again, if you want the longest running list of all of the DC Finest, just head over to comicreleases.com, where we do have an archive. You click the collection tab, editions tab up front. You can filter all of those DC Finest out in the future. And we also have the Patreon for the $2 EOS. You can create a watch list for yourself and place all of that in. We also have a Discord where you can talk all of this. hey, yeah, you see y'all in chat maybe tomorrow or at Omar's AMA. Maybe I will be there if my foot doesn't die. But I hope you guys are well. Please stay safe through the holidays, and we will see you soon. Have a wonderful day wherever you are.
Thanksgiving.